Hey everybody, so it's Sunday afternoon and I'm making a video. You'll probably hear some music in the background. My son's bedroom is on the other side of this door and he is playing his electric guitar today. He doesn't play that very often. He plays his acoustic quite a bit. So this one you'll have some background music, but he's a pretty great guitar player, so you'll enjoy it. I wanted to talk about just a few things today as we get ready to go ahead into week 2. Now again, so many times these things are not that complicated. Now sometimes there can be an early learning curve, right? So if you're really changing your lifestyle, there's this concept sometimes. It's like a healthy gluttony, they'll call it, right? Where you're like, oh hey, I'm not eating junk food, classic junk food anymore. I'm not going out to eat or something like that. So if I'm going to eat, nuts, I'll eat the whole bag. Or, oh wow, I can eat cheese on a keto diet. I love cheese, so I'm going to just go for that, right? So that is kind of understandable, right? And I honestly don't think it's that horrible. Again, if we're looking at this through the long lens, then there's going to be these seasons. Now, some of you are going to be more, not go off of the rails like that, but you'll find that, or you'll find kind of a holistic thing that you like, like a natural thing, like, oh wow, I kind of like fizzy water instead of soda pop, and so drinking 10 fizzy waters a day. That one's a little innocuous. It's not gonna hurt you. But there are some of those foods, even if they're natural, right? And so you might find things. It'll say keto friendly or gluten free, those kinds of things. But a lot of the stuff I've seen is keto friendly still has a ton of not a ton, excuse me, but still a fair amount of carbs. So if you're really trying to keep your carbs low, so I know there's a couple of you that have reached out that are following more of the keto plan and you're having a hard time getting into ketosis. That's normal. Especially if you've lived pretty hardcore non-keto for a long time, just think about it. Like, old habits die young physiologically. Yes, your body's regenerative. Yes, it heals. Yes, it's adaptable. But make no mistake, you can get your cells pretty fired up, living a certain way. They're so used to burning sugar, they're just not really adapted to burning fat. And so it can take some time. And again, it kind of depends on how hardcore you go, like how really restrictive you are on your carbs and sugars. And then if then eventually you'll flip over. Your body will start getting used or get better, becoming more efficient at burning fat. And so my encouragement to you, is really just, you almost have to, sometimes I'll meet parents and they'll say, my kids won't eat, all they'll eat is, chicken McNuggets and mac and cheese or something like that. And because their palate or their appetite and partly the dopamine in their brain has become so addicted, because there's a lot of chemicals that are put into food, right? They're called excitotoxins, and they almost give our brain a dopamine hit, all right? And there's a entire industry that spends trillions of dollars making chemicals that light up our brains, okay? So, when you eat a carrot, it's different than eating a bag of Doritos, like neurologically, like your brain freaks out, okay? Sugar is another example. Your body almost has more of there's been some animal studies they've done where they found that, rats and things will prefer sugar water over like unlimited sugar water versus unlimited cocaine, all right, as I grab my nose. So I say that to just remind you that this is a long game here, okay? And we have to create the basics of, so many of us have become, again, have you ever seen those studies? Gosh, I can't remember the number, but it was like the average person checks their phone, like, it was something crazy, like 275 times a day, something like that, right? And so right away you think, oh no, that's crazy. And then you start to monitor yourself and you say, well, I can see that that's not that crazy, okay? So as you're kind of, detoxing, right? I have some friends that work in some of these wilderness camps where they'll take kids up into the woods for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time, and it's kids sometimes that are struggling with addiction, but a lot of them that my friend has told me are kids that are addicted to things like video games, right? And so they're just addicted to technology. Okay, I mean, I have 2 kids of my own, and I've watched over time, like as my daughter's gotten older, she's 17, a senior in high school, right? Like as her number of friends increases, as just the things that she does, as her independence increases, right? She's on her phone more, all right? She doesn't do social media, thankfully. She's not on Facebook. She's not on Instagram. I think she has a couple little, I don't even know the names of them, Be Real or something like that. It's like they share photos with their friends. But I'm saying all that to say, if that's so you almost have to kind of reestablish a new baseline. If you've lived this, kind of you're used to this level of like, neurological excitement every time you have something to eat, then it may feel like it's bland. It may feel, but like that's just a kind of because your set point of your excitement level around the foods is just, and your convenience factor and your things like that have just gotten away from you. So as I'm taking a drink here of my, this is a heavy cream espresso that I'm drinking right there. Okay, so that sometimes that's one of my little hacks when I'm doing ketosis. I'll just have an espresso in the middle of the day. That's an iced espresso, just to kind of keeps my appetite at bay a little bit. Gets me some fat with the heavy cream in there, and I can kind of plug along for a little bit longer. The other thing is just thinking about this in simplifications, right? Like you're going through this season where you're learning about yourself. Almost look at it as an experiment, okay? You're paying more attention to what's in food. You're paying more attention to what is available, and some of it's just replacements, right? Like, or I found that for me, like on a breakfast example, it was church today, and then came home, and we used to go out afterwards. More often, right? It just kind of became a habit. We'd go out to breakfast afterwards. It's usually like Panera or Starbucks or First Watch or something like that. Nothing too crazy. We'd go get a coffee, maybe sometimes a little bit of something additional. But I've noticed, especially since we're doing keto, and you're trying to keep the carbs out. So we'll come home. So they had eggs and sausage, avocado, and this morning. So like even though my wife makes a lot of wonderful sourdough, which I do miss eating. But as long as I keep that off, or I occasionally used to make like a breakfast burrito, but I just won't do that. I won't have a piece of toast. I'm careful about just some of the potatoes. I made some potatoes for my kids, but I didn't have any of them. And so I just do that sometimes. So like I'm still having, a great breakfast, right? 90%, like left up to my own, I'd love to have a piece of toast or maybe, something like that, but I'm okay. It's still a very satisfying meal, right? I'm not sitting over there thinking, oh man, I didn't get to have what I wanted, all right? And some of this is really, what is it revealing to you, right? That was kind of one of my last notes. Like, don't go through this just begrudgingly, right? Look at it almost as an experiment, all right? Use it. I remember this patient one time. I love my patients. They just share things with me that like catch me off guard sometimes. And this one guy, he said one time, he said, Ben, he said, a lesson that he learned is don't get furious, get curious. And that's stuck with me over the years. So like when you're going through this with your nutrition, your lifestyle, you're like, man, why am I so focused on, this? Why am I just, all I can think about is Breyer's ice cream or chips and dip or I don't know, like again, like I said, everybody kind of has their favorite thing or their vice or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10, all right, or their favorite restaurant. And it just reveals to you, man, why is that? And so I would just encourage you as you're going at it this week. Okay, the first week it's kind of like, okay, I got to get a handle on this. Now I'm finding, okay, these are the kind of things I can have for breakfast. Here's kind of what fasting feels like. Here's when I sneak in some of my workouts, right? It's Sunday afternoon. My wife's out working out right now. I'll probably get one in hopefully later. I already got one in this morning, but it's Sunday, so I've got a little extra time. I went and washed the cars. We'll just I got a little bit of yard work to do, and then I'll probably maybe get one in this afternoon or later in the afternoon, evening. So week 2 here, let's have this be kind of a reflection week, kind of an experimental week, right? Like ask yourself some questions and dive into it. I'm a journaler. I always got my journal, and it's right here. I go through these black journals all the time. It just keeps me focused. I write questions. I write notes to myself. I write ideas down. I write in my prayer time. I feel bad. Whoever reads these someday, if I die suddenly and my wife goes through my journals, she'll be so confused. Not because there's anything bad, but just like my notes make no sense so many times, and I'm all over the place. Like if you could just see the scribbles that are in there. But anyway, it's just how my brain, it kind of helps me get it out of my brain. It helps me organize my thoughts a little bit. I'm not sharing these things that these are things you have to do. These are just things that's worked for me. But as you simplify your life and you take out some of the wasteful things, things that just waste your time. We were playing this little game this afternoon. It's kind of questions that you ask, like they're like kind of conversation starters. And One of them was, what do you do that what's something you do that is a big waste of time for you, right? And so we kind of went around our family and we're asking ourselves that, right? And you can find those things. You're like, man, why do I do that? What is it about that? And kind of dive deeper. You know, 2, 3 questions. Like, man, why do I like that food? Is it just because I'm stressed out? Is it because I feel good when I eat it? You know, sometimes it's just like, enjoyable. I love going out with my friends, and that was something that we did socially or something like that. And just see if there's anything edifying in this. I've got a book over here written by a lady. It's called Redeeming Food, and then she's a nutritionist, and she kind of went really far down the legalistic route of food, and then she kind of came back and she's like, hey, God made food, and God made us food to enjoy, and gave it to us to do it together, in community. I totally agree with that. It's just that a lot of the things that we're consuming, we're consuming, it's not actually food, and we're consuming it at a gluttonous level, right? That's kind of the things that I think are just a basic thing to start with, It's those two things, right? Is it actually food? And are you consuming it in a reasonable amount, right? Like from just not a gluttonous state. And so, anyway, just some food for thought this morning, and hope that's helpful for you. Hope you had a great Sunday, and you'll be watching this probably Monday morning. All right, guys, have a great day. Take care. God bless.